My dear ones, peace be with you. It has been some time since I have spoken with you, for my Son deigned to choose to speak with you these last years. Again this year he sends me. Do recall that he has called you over many years. Yes, my little ones. He has called to you. First he spoke a message: smash your idols. Give them to God. Then he spoke a message: let go. For even once you had smashed your idols, still you held on to the broken pieces, clinging to them as if they could save you or help you at all. Now this night he sends me, again to come to you as a mother. For who can turn away from the voice of a mother? Is it not true that when no one on earth can prevail upon you, your own mother has power? And so he sends me to tell you this third part of his message that he has shared with you over the past 3 years. First, he asked you to smash the idols. Then, to give up the pieces of the broken idols. Now, he asks you to embrace the true God, the one God, the God alone who can bring you joy and peace and happiness and the fulfillment of every desire you have. Little ones, the world has forgotten my Son. They do not know of his great love. They do not know what he has done for them. Everywhere there is darkness, and the evil one desires to blot out the name of my Son. And so he sends me, as a great mercy to the world, to announce to the world his great love and desire for unity with his people. Desire to be one with his people. Throughout the ages, God has made many covenants with his chosen ones, you, my children. And each time he was faithful to each and every covenant. Faithfully, he walked by his people. And only when they turned their faces from him and began to worship false idols did they find malcontent, misery, desolation, and despair. And yet, little ones, still, even now, my children fall into this same trap, this snare laid by the enemy, so cunning. You cannot have joy apart from God. This is the steps to conversion. This is the way to live faith fully. First, you must make a place on the altar of your heart for God. For I tell you, every man worships some God. Not every man worships the God, our God, the only God, the one who is and was and ever shall be, with all power and all majesty. Every man has a God on the altar of his heart. And when they are false gods, they make promises of happiness, and there is no happiness, only sorrow. And promises of peace, and there is only disharmony and disunity. Promises of joy, and there is only despair. For all false gods will fail and be shown for what they are: chaff, weeds. Not the true vine, the living water, who desires to fill you with grace beyond your imagining. So you must make space on the altar of your heart for God. And it is for this reason that I ask you again this day to beware of the false idols that are placed there. For even good and holy things can become idols when they take the center of our time, our hearts, our love. Then you must give them to God. Have done with them, children. Have done with them. Give the smashed pieces to God. Let Him take them from you. Release the grip of your hands upon them. They do you no good. Now, having heard those messages, you are ready. You have an open space in the center of your heart, on the altar that is there. Whom will you enthrone? I invite you. Even as a mother, I beseech you to enthrone the one Christ in your heart. He who even now in eternity bears the wounds that He took upon His flesh for your sake, that you might never forget what He has done for you. It was not necessary that He bring His woundedness into His glory, but it was a choice that He made, such that He appeared to His apostles transfigured, yet still in His glorified, resurrected body, bearing the very wounds that are the source of His glory and your salvation. And on the day when you stand before Him in His kingdom, He will be a king resplendent and bejeweled and crowned, enthroned and broken in the flesh, bearing the marks of a scourging and a terrible death. Because it is these very pains that are His glory and yours. You are called to be the image of Christ. How do you enthrone Him in your hearts? You must love as He loves, because you must become what He is. You must become a new creation, resurrected into a new life. For that is what comes after you have done of your idols and cast the pieces away. Resurrection. A new life in Christ. You must make Him center of your heart by keeping Him always at the center of your mind. In everything you do, may He be worshipped. This is not to say that at every moment of every day you need to speak audible prayers. On the contrary, God desires you to live your vocations fully. It would be impossible for you who are husbands and wives and mothers and fathers, sisters, brothers, employees, to pray in this way. No, you are called to a different kind of prayer, a living prayer. Yes, pray your rosary, for it is the most powerful prayer. Yes, above all else, come and receive Him in the Mass. You must receive His Eucharistic flesh to know the fullness of His grace. You would sooner do better without water or the sun than without His body and blood to feed and nourish you. Yes, pray from the heart, mentally, vocally, in groups, alone, in your families, with your spouse. But also, transform your every action into prayer. How are you to do this? Every action that is dedicated to the service of God, that looks not to self but to other, that seeks to bring souls to heaven, is prayer. And when you do this in union with the suffering of the Christ, remembering His glorified wounds, lifting your own wounds, your own scars, your own traumas to Him, then, dear one, your breathing, your living, your sleeping and your waking will be transformed into prayer and be made holy. For this, in the end, is what God is requesting. This is what He desires, a holy people. And that must start with a holiness in your own soul. Holy marriages, holy families, holy parishes, holy communities, and a holy world. This is how God desires to work. He could come in His glory and His power and illuminate the darkness so that no man could deny His existence. But, my little ones, how much more beautiful that you having faith without sight, trusting Him without certain knowledge, would carry a tiny light, each one of you a simple flame in the darkness, to illuminate the place God has placed you. Imagine the glorious light of millions of souls reflecting the light of God, the light of Christ in their own homes, families, and communities. Do you not see this is how God always works since the very first covenant with Adam in the garden, when He commanded man to go forth and be fruitful and be multiplied and fill the earth and subdue it and be servants first and stewards first, living in peace and in harmony and in joy. That covenant, like many that followed, was broken. But that did not stop the Lord from fulfilling the glorious plan of the incarnation. Think on it, children, how greatly you are loved, that God Himself came to you as flesh and blood, that could be beaten and broken and die for you. What love! And so, you must become as He is. You must die each day to self and live for other. You must bear your wounds as Christ bears His, and transform them into a source of glory. Glory for God and your eventual glory in the kingdom of heaven. By using these wounds, these sorrows, these pains and these sufferings to serve the people of God, to grow in compassion, to grow in mercy, to grow in love. My little ones, I come as a witness to you. My Son Jesus has spoken to you of these things, but I, with truly human eyes, have seen these things. My eyes, even at this moment, behold the glory of God. Perhaps you can relate better to me, as I was as you are, a simple woman living in the place that God planted me, with family, with friends, with joys and with sorrows. And yet now I come to you, after these many years of speaking to you, and say again, there is nothing on earth that compares to the glory that awaits those who love God with all of their hearts, all of their minds, all of their soul, and all of their strength. You cannot conceive of what is waiting for you in our Father's kingdom. And so reflect even now on the gospel that you heard this very night, as you received the body and blood of the Lord Christ into your hearts and into your flesh, and were, despite your inability to see, transformed already into a new creation. For it is not possible to receive Him and remain as you were. What is the kingdom of heaven? How are you to find it? Yes, it is a prepared place, prepared by my Son for you from the beginning of time, from the beginning of ages. But also, it is a secret place in the heart of every man, where there is an altar. Whom will you enthrone on that altar? Will it be the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of this world? The choice is yours. It is only yours. God can send me year after year after year to speak the same message to you, but it is you who must choose. And He will respect the freedom of your choice. He desires relationship with you. He desires to love you, to comfort you, to encourage you, and to be your God, to be in covenant with you. Receive Him then, dear ones, and know that you are receiving more than you could ever hope for, much more than we deserve. All things when you receive Him. Be good stewards of this tiny kingdom of heaven that resides within your own soul, and bring it unstained and cleaned to the moment of your judgment, when the time comes when you will stand before my Son, and you will see upon his flesh the wounds he bears that were yours, and you will see your own flesh transformed and glorified, because he first bore your pains. Be faithful, my little ones. Do not be discouraged nor dismayed. Do not walk apart from him. Love God and love all those you encounter, and know that as your mother I will be with you, ever your advocate and intercessor.